Hey, you. So, Singapore's on the cards, huh? Fantastic choice.
It really is a great destination.
Whether you're, picturing yourself sipping a Singapore sling or maybe gearing up for a crucial business meeting, one thing's for sure.
Hmm.
Nobody wants a snag with their visa.
Absolutely not. That can ruin a trip before it even starts.
Exactly. That's why for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on Singapore's entry requirements. We're sifting through all the essentials to give you a clear, no-nonsense guide.
It's kind of like an express lane.
Yeah, consider this your express lane to understanding. I'm planning the good stuff.
Absolutely. Think of Singapore's visa system as like a set of pathways. And the right path for you really depends on where you're coming from and what you intend to do there.
Right.
It's not just about, ticking boxes. It's about understanding which regulations apply to your specific situation, whether you're planning a quick getaway or maybe a longer term stay.
Okay, let's unpack these pathways then. Broadly speaking, we're looking at short trips and longer stays. Let's kick off with those shorter visits.
Makes sense.
First up, the tourist visa. This is like what comes to mind for most people planning a holiday, hitting the iconic spots, maybe diving into that incredible food scene.
Yeah, the standard vacation visa.
Generally, we're talking about stays around 30 days, right?
Yeah.
But here's a fascinating bit. For a huge number of nationalities, you might not even need a tourist visa.
That's a really, really important point to emphasize. Singapore has visa-free agreements with many countries for short tourist stays.
Like who, typically?
Well, the list is quite extensive, includes most of the EU, the US, Australia, New Zealand, loads of others. But the key takeaway here is don't assume anything.
Right.
You absolutely must check the latest list. It's maintained by Singapore's Immigration and Checkpoints Authority, or SCA. A quick visit to their official website will save you potential headaches. Seriously.
Definitely worth that extra click.
Right.
Now, what if your trip has a more professional angle? So you're heading over for a conference, a crucial negotiation, maybe to seal a business deal.
Okay. Yeah.
That sounds like the realm of the business visa. This isn't about setting up shop and working there, though, is it?
Correct. No, that's crucial. The business visa is specifically for those short-term business engagements, attending meetings, conferences, exploring partnerships, that kind of thing.
So no salary from a Singapore company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The crucial distinction is that it doesn't permit you to be employed and draw a salary in Singapore. Typically, you'll need to demonstrate the genuine business purpose of your visit.
How do you do that?
Often, it involves providing a letter from your company outlining your activities, maybe an invitation from the Singaporean counterpart. And as you mentioned, these visas are generally for a shorter duration than a tourist visa might allow.
Right. Okay, so holiday or a bit of business covered. But what about those moments when Singapore is more of like a pit stop, connecting flights where you might need to actually clear immigration?
Ah, transit.
Yeah, that's where the transit visa comes in, I imagine.
Yes. The transit visa is designed for travelers who have a connecting flight and need to enter Singapore while in transit. However, the rules here can be quite nuanced.
How so?
Well, it depends heavily on your nationality and the length of your layover. Some nationalities might be eligible for visa-free transit for a certain period, usually under 96 hours, I think, under specific conditions.
Then not everyone.
No, definitely not. Others might need a specific transit visa applied for in advance. It's another situation where checking the specific regulations well beforehand is absolutely essential. The criteria can be quite strict.
Okay, good to know. So that's the landscape for short-term visits. Now let's pivot to those planning to maybe call Singapore home for a while. Longer stays.
Right, the more involved visas.
The employment path sounds like the main avenue for skilled professionals with job offers.
Exactly. The Employment Pass, or EP, is for professionals who have secured a job with an employer in Singapore. Generally, to qualify, you'll need to have recognized professional qualifications.
Like degrees.
Yeah, university degrees or maybe significant professional certifications. And your prospective salary needs to meet a certain minimum threshold.
Ah, the salary benchmark.
Yep. It's set by the Ministry of Manpower, and it reflects your experience level and the industry you'll be working in. It's not a single flat rate.
So if you've landed that coveted job in Singapore, this is likely the visa you'll be looking at. What are some key documents or, information you'd need to have ready?
Well, first and foremost, you'll need that valid job offer, a formal employment contract from a company registered in Singapore.
Makes sense.
You'll also need to provide detailed documentation of your educational qualifications, professional certifications, and your work history. Basically, proving your skills and experience are relevant to the role.
And the salary details.
Absolutely. As we mentioned, the salary details in your contract will be a key factor in the assessment. They need to see it meets that threshold.
Makes sense. Now, what about individuals who might have valuable skills, but perhaps don't quite meet those higher salary requirements for an employment pass? Is there another option for, say, mid-skilled workers?
Yes, there is. The S-Pass. It's specifically designed for mid-skilled workers who have a job offer in Singapore.
Okay, S-Pass.
Yeah. While the salary requirements are generally lower than those for an employment pass, there are still specific criteria you'll need to meet. It's not automatic.
Such as? What kind of criteria are we talking about?
Typically, applicants for an S-Pass need to provide evidence of their technical or vocational skills relevant to the job.
So, diplomas, certificates.
Exactly. Diplomas, vocational training certificates, or maybe just demonstrable work experience in a specific trade or technical field. There's also a minimum monthly salary requirement, although, like I said, lower than for an EP.
And education.
Often, yeah. Having some recognized form of education or relevant work experience is usually expected. The employer also has quotas and levies to consider for S-Pass holders.
Interesting. It's good to know there are different pathways depending on skill level and role.
Yeah.
Now, Singapore is a real hub for innovation, right?
Yeah.
What about those budding entrepreneurs looking to launch their own startups there?
Absolutely. Singapore actively encourages entrepreneurship. For that, there's the EntrePass.
Entrepath.
It's specifically for individuals who want to start and run an innovative, scalable business in Singapore. But it's important to note, this isn't just for any type of business.
So not just opening a regular shop.
Probably not, no. The focus tends to be on ventures that are, technology-driven, have strong intellectual property, or demonstrate significant potential for growth, often in sectors like fintech, biotech, advanced manufacturing, that kind of thing.
Okay, so if you've got that game-changing business idea, what are the crucial elements for an EntrePass application? What do they really look for?
A well-developed and convincing business plan is paramount. Absolutely critical. You'll need to clearly articulate your business idea, its innovation, market potential, your team's capabilities.
The whole package.
The whole package, yeah. You'll also typically need to show evidence of having sufficient seed funding to get the business off the ground, or secure funding from a recognized source.
And the company itself.
The business needs to be registered, or intended to be registered, in Singapore. As you said, Singapore is pushing hard to be a startup hub, and the EntrePass criteria reflect this. They look for that innovative edge, strong IP, or potential to disrupt.
Right. We've covered a good range of visa types now. But as we touched on earlier, there are always exceptions and special cases. Let's just quickly revisit that visa-free access. It sounds like a huge benefit for many travelers.
It is indeed a massive convenience. As we mentioned, many countries have these agreements with Singapore. Allows their citizens to enter for short visits, mainly tourism, sometimes brief business, without needing to apply for a visa beforehand.
And the duration varies.
Yeah, the permitted duration of these visa-free stays can vary. Often it's up to 90 days, but sometimes it's 30. It's crucial to verify the specifics for your nationality on the official ICA website. Don't rely on, what a friend told you last year.
Good advice. Regulations change.
Exactly.
And are there other instances where certain nationalities might have different or maybe simplified processes?
Yes, sometimes. Due to various diplomatic agreements, bilateral arrangements, things like that, citizens of certain countries might benefit from streamlined visa application procedures, maybe longer allowed stays under certain visa categories, or even waivers of specific requirements.
So how would someone find out about that?
If you think this might apply to your situation, the best bet is always to get in touch with the Singaporean embassy or consulate in your own country. They'll have the most accurate, up-to-date info on any special provisions.
Okay.
This is particularly relevant if you're not traveling on a standard passport. For instance, if you hold refugee travel documents, different rules can definitely apply. Embassy contact is key there.
That's really valuable advice. And what about individuals who have close family members who are Singaporean citizens or permanent residents? We mentioned the long-term visit pass earlier, LTVP.
Right, the LTVP. It's specifically designed for individuals who have close family ties to Singapore citizens or permanent residents,
Who qualifies typically?
usually spouses, dependent children, and sometimes parents of citizens or PRs. It's essentially a pathway for families to live together in Singapore for an extended period.
And what does this pass enable the holder to do once they actually have it? Can they work?
Well, the LTVP allows the holder to reside in Singapore for a significant amount of time, definitely. And in some instances, depending on the specifics, like if you're the spouse of a citizen, it may also grant the right to seek employment, sometimes with a letter of consent.
But it's not guaranteed.
Not always, automatically.
Yeah.
And the application process for an LTVP is usually quite comprehensive. You need substantial documentation to prove the authenticity and, the strength of the family relationship with the Singapore citizen or PR sponsor. They really check that.
Okay, so a fair bit of paperwork involved there. Right. Let's say you've figured out which visa is the right fit. Let's talk nuts and bolts, the application procedures, the documents needed. What are the foundational documents that pretty much everyone will need?
Okay, yeah, the basics. Generally, across most visa types, you'll almost certainly need a passport that is valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended stay in Singapore. That 6-month rule is standard.
Got it. 6-month validity.
You'll also need to complete the official visa application form accurately and provide recent passport-size photographs that meet their specific guidelines, background color, size, all that. Additionally, it's very common to need to submit a copy of your confirmed flight itinerary showing your entry and departure dates, and proof of your accommodation arrangements in Singapore, like hotel booking confirmations.
Those sound like fairly standard travel documents. But as we've discussed, certain visas will definitely have additional layers of requirements, right?
Precisely. Loads more depending on the visa. For a business visa, for example, you'll likely need that official invitation letter from the company or organization you're visiting in Singapore detailing the purpose and duration.
And for work visas.
For employment-related visas like the EP or S-Pass, you'll need to provide your employment contract, naturally, along with detailed evidence of your educational qualifications, professional certs, and your previous work experience. Proof you can do the job.
Right.
And in some cases, particularly for longer stays or certain visa types, you might also be asked to provide bank statements or other financial documents, just to show you can support yourself.
So the key is?
The key is always, always carefully review the specific document checklist for the exact visa you are applying for. Find it on the ICA website. Don't guess.
And how are these applications typically submitted these days? Is it all online?
Yes, pretty much. The vast majority of visa applications for Singapore are now processed online through the e-services portal on the ICA website. The typical process involves creating an account on their secure platform, meticulously filling out the online application form, all the required info, uploading scanned copies of all the necessary supporting documents in the specified formats.
File types and sizes matter, I guess.
They do. Pay attention to that. And then paying the applicable visa fee through their online payment system.
Any insider tips for navigating that online application process smoothly? Anything people often trick up on?
Definitely. Before you even start filling out the form, get all your documents scanned, clear, high-quality digital scans, check the file formats, check the size limits the ICA specifies, have them ready to go.
Preparation is key.
Totally. And when you're filling out the online form, double-check, triple-check every field for accuracy before you hit submit. Even minor errors, a typo in a passport number, can lead to delays or, worst case, a rejection.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No! It's worth taking your time and being really meticulous.
Okay, you've dotted all the I's, crossed the T's, uploaded everything, hit submit. Now comes the waiting game. What's a general time frame for visa processing? Are we talking days, weeks, months?
It really varies. Processing times depend quite a bit on the specific type of visa you've applied for and, frankly, the current volume of applications the ICA is handling at that moment.
So no guarantees.
No guarantees. Generally, for some short-term visas, like a standard tourist visa if you need one, you might see a turnaround in just a few working days. But for more complex long-term visas, like an employment pass or entree pass,
Takes longer.
yeah, the processing time could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to potentially a few months in some cases, especially if they need more information.
And is there a way to, keep tabs on your application once it's submitted, so you're not just waiting in the dark?
Yes, thankfully. Once you've successfully submitted your online application, you will typically receive an application reference number. You can use this number to track the status of your application through the ICA's e-services portal. It usually shows if it's pending, approved, rejected, or requires action.
That's useful.
It is. But it's important to remember, as I said, the ICA doesn't guarantee specific processing times, even with the tracker. So the best advice is always apply well in advance of your planned travel dates. Give yourself plenty of buffer time. Avoid that last-minute stress.
Good point. Let's talk money, the financial aspect. What kind of fees are we looking at for Singapore visas generally, and how are those typically paid?
Right, fees. They do vary, sometimes significantly, depending on the category of visa you're applying for. Generally, you'll find that short-term visas, like tourist visas, tend to have lower application fees compared to long-term visas like employment passes or entree passes, which involve more processing.
Makes sense.
It's absolutely essential, though, to consult the official ICA website for the most up-to-date and accurate fee schedule. Fees can and do change, so check right before you apply.
And in terms of actually paying,
Yeah.
how do you do that, especially online?
For online applications, the most common methods are credit and debit cards. Usually, major providers like Visa, MasterCard, sometimes American Express are accepted. Pretty standard online payment.
Any other options?
For certain types of applications, or maybe in specific circumstances, like if an in-person submission is needed for some reason, there might be other methods available. Things like online banking transfers directly, or NETS, which is Singapore's local electronic payment system.
Okay.
But again, always best to just check the accepted payment options listed right there on the ICA website or the application portal before you proceed. Make sure your card works, basically.
Now, the awkward question.
Hmm.
What happens if, despite your best efforts, maybe you missed a document or they just decide against it and your visa application is not approved? Are those application fees usually refundable?
Generally speaking, no. The fees paid for Singapore visa applications are non-refundable, regardless of the outcome.
Even if it's rejected?
Even if it's rejected. This is a pretty standard policy globally for visa applications, actually. The fee covers the processing work, not the approval itself.
Are there any exceptions?
Very rare ones. Perhaps in a documented case where there was a clear technical error on the ICA system that prevented proper processing. But that's highly unusual.
So assume the fee is gone once paid.
Pretty much. It's really important to understand that policy before you submit and pay. And, just to reiterate, paying the fee does not guarantee your application will be approved, it just gets it reviewed.
That's a crucial piece of information. Manage expectations. Okay, now let's shift gears slightly. Say you are in Singapore, you've got your visa, you're having a great time, maybe business is taking longer, and you find yourself wishing you could extend your stay. Is that a possibility?
In some circumstances, yes, it is possible to apply for an extension of your stay in Singapore. However, it's definitely not always straightforward.
Depends on the visa.
Exactly. Whether you're eligible for an extension depends significantly on the type of visa you currently hold and, crucially, the reasons behind your request to stay longer. Certain short-term visas, for example, might explicitly state they cannot be extended, you just have to leave.
Okay. So step one is check your current visa conditions.
Absolutely. Check if an extension is even permitted. If it is, you'll typically need to gather the required documentation for the extension application.
What does that usually involve?
Likely your passport, again, a specific visa extension application form, probably a letter explaining why you need to extend your stay, continued tourism, ongoing business talks, medical reasons, whatever it is.
Supporting documents too.
Potentially, yes. Copies of your ongoing travel arrangements, maybe updated flight bookings, letters from business contacts if relevant. Then you'd usually submit this extension application online, again through the ICA's e-service portal, and pay the applicable extension fee.
And then wait again.
And then wait again for the ICA to process the request and let you know the outcome.
And what are the key factors the Singaporean authorities consider when they're deciding whether or not to grant a visa extension?
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
Well, several factors come into play. They'll look at the type of visa you initially entered on, the reasons you're giving for wanting to extend. Is it a valid reason? Your immigration history in Singapore is also important. Have you extended before? Have you always complied with the rules? And do you still meet the basic eligibility criteria for staying?
So they assess the whole picture.
Exactly. They assess the legitimacy of your request and your overall track record as a visitor or resident.
Okay, and let's consider the negative outcome. What if your application for a visa extension is denied? Or maybe worse, you just let your visa expire and overstay your permitted time in Singapore without authorization. What are the potential repercussions?
Oh, the consequences of overstaying your visa in Singapore are extremely serious. You really don't want to go there.
Like what?
We're talking substantial fines, potentially a period of imprisonment depending on the length of overstay, being banned from re-entering Singapore for years, maybe even permanently, and deportation back to your home country, often at your own expense.
Wow. Okay, so definitely not something to mess around with.
Absolutely not. It is vital to adhere strictly to the expiry date of your visa or your approved extension. If you've applied for an extension and it hasn't been granted by the time your current permission expires, you must leave Singapore. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Even if you hope it might still come through.
Even then, you have to leave. You can always explore applying for a new visa from outside Singapore later if you have valid grounds to return. Overstaying is simply not worth the severe penalties and the black mark on your immigration record, not just for Singapore, but potentially other countries too.
So wrapping this up, it really sounds like having a solid understanding of Singapore's visa requirements is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
For anyone planning a trip there, no matter the duration or the purpose.
Precisely. Couldn't have said it better. Whether it's that short holiday, a critical business trip, or you're considering a longer-term move for work or family, taking the time to thoroughly understand the specific visa regulations that apply to you is the crucial first step. It sets you up for a smooth, trouble-free experience.
Right, avoid the headaches later.
Exactly. And as we've emphasized, I think, multiple times throughout our conversation, the official website of the Immigration and Checkpoints Authority, the ICA, remains your single most reliable and up-to-date source for all the specific information you need. Checklists, fees, forms, processing times. It's all there.
Absolutely. Use the official source. Now, just thinking about this whole system, the wide array of visa options Singapore offers, catering to everyone from tourists and business travelers to skilled professionals, entrepreneurs, even those with family ties.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of prompts the question, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What might be the overarching priorities of the Singaporean government in attracting such a diverse range of visitors and long-term residents? What's the strategy behind these different pathways?
That's a great question to ponder.
And also, considering that some nationalities enjoy the ease of visa-free entry, while others face more detailed requirements. What broader geopolitical or maybe economic factors do you think might play a role in shaping these international agreements? Who gets visa-free and why?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on behind the scenes with those agreements.
It certainly gives you something to think about as you plan your own trip, Brian, and perhaps encourages you to delve a little deeper into the information that is available on that ICA website. Thanks for navigating this deep dive with us.